I'm artist Lillian Gray, and I have a fellow artist you simply have to meet, George Pemba. George Pemba is an artist who defeated the stereotype that black people could not become professional painters during the Apartheid regime in South Africa. Pemba is often referred to as the Grandmaster of South African art and is internationally recognized as one of South Africa's greatest artists. His paintings depict the conditions of people living in townships. Over 6 decades, he provides us with a remarkable visual history of what he witnessed through South Africa's transformation. Now, why should we listen to George Pemba's story, and why should we pay attention? Simply because it's quite inspirational. There are a few things I'd love you to keep in mind when listening to his story. First of all, Pemba was exposed to very limited art training that was fragmented throughout his life, and this was due to all the restrictions apartheid implemented on black education. However, whatever opportunity presented itself, Pemba grabbed it with both hands. Keeping this in mind, it is remarkable to see the amazing standard of his oeuvre. He was not only a prolific artist, but also highly skilled. His works can easily be compared to international art movements and artists of the time. In his art, we can see the influences of German Expressionism, Realism, and Impressionism. Realism because he depicted society and his community in a warts-and-all approach. Impressionism because he captured fleeting moments of daily life. And Expressionism because often the emotion or the narrative is more important than depicting everything in minor details. He also sometimes distorts figures to aid the communication of emotion. Today, he is seen as a pioneer of social realism. Little George Pemba was born at 1912 just outside PE in a town called Koster Village. From the get-go, Pemba just had an affinity for art. He simply loved it. He had a really cool dad that encouraged him to paint and draw, and he even allowed him to draw on the walls. He said to him, "Pemba, please paint some beautiful murals in our home." His dad was super proud about his talent, so he started telling everybody about how good Pemba was. One day, his dad came home with photos of his boss and said, "Pemba, my boss would like you to paint him." And so Pemba started painting portraits, and it was quite successful. Pemba was so talented that in 1924 he won a Grace Scholarship, which enabled him to receive a post-primary education. This is amazing for during Apartheid era. Unfortunately, something super sad happened. At the age of 14, Pemba's father passed away. Despite this hardship, Pemba decided to still follow his dream to become an artist. At the mere age of 16, Pemba was part of his first exhibition. It was held at the Feather Market Hall in Port Elizabeth in 1928. In 1934, his appendix burst, and Pemba was taken to hospital. He had to stay in hospital for quite a while, and while he was there, his art kept him busy. He started drawing and painting all the doctors and nurses. They were so impressed with Pemba's skills that they told the Professor Ethel Smith at Fort Hare about Pemba. Being a professor, Ethel had lots of books, and he introduced Pemba to Rembrandt van Rijn, Vellesch, Impressionism, and German Expressionism. He gave Pemba some direction in drawing and taught him how to use watercolors. After school, Pemba decided to become a teacher, and he studied a diploma in teaching at the Lovedale Training College. Because it was really difficult to earn a living during apartheid for black people, he also had to find another job, so he started working at the Lovedale printing press. They realized he was quite talented and said to him, Pemba, don't you want to start painting and doing all the illustrations for our books? Pemba was a teacher for 7 years, but unfortunately, with the Bantu Education Act, black teachers really didn't earn a lot of money, so he had to take a new job as an administrator for the government. In 1941, Pemba won a scholarship to go to Rhodes University, but it was a rather silly scholarship if you ask me. It was only for 5 months. You have to realize, normally you go to university for at least 4 years to get a degree. But Pemba decided to use this 5 months to the best of his ability and learn as much as he possibly could. Just outside the university, there was art classes run by this old man called Maurice from Escher. Now back then it wasn't allowed for black people and white people to be in the same art class, but Maurice allowed it. Maurice taught various students how to draw and paint. It was at these art lessons that Pemba's life changed dramatically. He met the amazing Gerard Sekoto. Gerard Sekoto was a really great South African artist. He encouraged Pemba to be a full-time artist, and he said to him, you know what, George, you really need to stop with watercolors. I think it's time that you move on to oil painting. You see, oil painting was much more robust and could be preserved forever, where watercolors were finicky and difficult to keep clean and frame. He also gave Pemba some great advice about his art. He said, you need to pay more attention to your immediate surroundings as subject matter. Pemba took all of this advice to heart. He switched to oils and decided to be a full-time artist. He jumped into taxis and traveled to Johannesburg, Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, Umtata, Lesotholand, painting portraits of the indigenous people he met in the different regions. You have to realize that being an artist in apartheid South Africa was no joke. But being a black artist in apartheid South Africa was way, way, way harder. Pemba had to earn extra income, so he started a spaza shop at his house with his wife, Gabby. Guess what happened next? Pemba entered the May Esther Bedford art competition, and he won first prize. His previous mentor, Gerard Sekoto, received second prize. I think this is amazing. As artists, we have to encourage each other. And as an art teacher, I believe my students should one day be better than what I am. In 1959, Pemba also started making satirical cartoons. The first one was published in the ANC's newspaper, Isizwe. Pemba was also a writer, and he produced at least 2 staged plays. He also painted various scenes from his plays. With all his hard work, Pemba was given an honorary master's degree in arts by the University of Fort Hare. Although Pemba is not seen as a protest artist today, his art career was affected by the struggle. But his biggest contribution was that he made people see what life was like for black people under apartheid rule in the townships. His representation of township life has been described as unpretentious and honest, displaying an understanding of humanity. And today, he is a respected watercolor and oil artist. Now, let's look at some recognition Pemba has received for an art career that spanned almost over 6 decades. You have to remember that the majority of this career was spent during the apartheid rule. Pemba could only really become a successful artist and gain recognition once apartheid started falling and Mandela was free. The esteemed Everard Reed Gallery held an exhibition of Pemba's artworks to honor him for his 80th birthday. A book about Pemba's life and art was released, named Against All Odds. Unfortunately, Pemba passed away in 2001 and couldn't enjoy other recognitions he received. Posthumously, the South African government awarded him the Order of Iqamanga. A documentary was made of the artist's life, and for his 100th anniversary, the South African Post Office released a set of 10 commemorative stamps featuring some of Pemba's best-known artwork. Now we need to look at the characteristics of Pemba's artworks. We need to ask ourselves, what did he paint, where did he paint it, how did he paint it, and why? Let's start with the what. Pemba is known for painting portrait paintings, individuals or in groups, landscapes, references to religious topics, and commentary on political and social circumstances. Where did he paint? Although Pemba travelled to various regions to depict people from all over South Africa, he concentrated on depicting the life in the township New Brighton, where he spent most of his life. How did he paint? What was his painting style? Initially, Pemba painted in watercolours, which was a relatively cheap medium. In his watercolour works, the colour use is soft and seductive. But when he began painting with oil, his style changed. In both his watercolour and oil paintings, he shows a strong feeling for form. He creates form which are solid by using simplified planes. He loves using contrasting light. Just look at the dramatic yellow light on this purple skin tone. This brings me to Pemba's use of colour. Sometimes he plays with contrasting colours such as the complementary blue and orange, red and green, yellow and purple. His use of colour is bold, and sometimes he uses impasto brushstrokes. Now let's talk about the why. What was the purpose of Pemba's artwork? To draw attention to the daily lives of black people in apartheid South Africa. He depicts the uncertainties and the contradictions that were part of life in South Africa at the time. His work includes themes such as joy, fear, loss, the experience of a daily life, cultural traditions, human rights, politics, and religious commentary. His work is inclusive of the human condition through representing his personal experiences. Let's discuss two of Pemba's famous artworks. I would like to begin with this one, New Brighton, Port Elizabeth, 1977, oil on canvas. By looking at this painting, we need to understand that the narrative from the apartheid government at that stage was that black people are living like animals, they choose to live in squatter camps, they are dirty, they are not worthy of having proper homes. This painting by George Pemba depicts a completely different narrative. We see a traffic circle and the community playing out in the street. Things to notice is that the street is clean. There are trees and plants planted next to the houses. All the houses are very neat and tidy. This shows that this community cares enough about their environment to make it beautiful. Note that there is no infrastructure. No street lights, no paved sidewalk. The entire street culminates into a vanishing point which ends with the industry and the factories at the background. Now, this harks to the fact that apartheid and its regime was economically driven. The apartheid government needed cheap black labor, especially for the mines, and to keep the industries running and open. Here in the middle of the day, we see a lot of people home and in the streets. This comments on the joblessness in South Africa. People do not have work and have nowhere to go. To depict the vibrancy of the community and the fact that they are closely knit and jivey, Pemba is using complementary colors. The red and the green, the yellow and the purple, the orange and the blue creates a sense of movement in the painting. The next painting I would like to discuss is Terror, 1991, oil on board. This painting is about the brutal consequences of the apartheid system on the lives of black people. It has chaotic movement, with people trapped in a confined space. We have people running towards the viewer, arms spread out wide in their effort to move away. In the background, we see the apartheid police only as silhouettes starting to shoot people inside a bus or a train. In the foreground, we have people lying on the ground. They are either dead or unconscious. There is a suitcase on the floor and a hat flying off the man's head, all adding to the chaos of the moment. We see quite a prominent C-curve composition in this painting, trapping the people, making them feel completely claustrophobic. And the only glimmer of freedom we can see is some blue sky shining through the windows. Note that Pemba didn't paint every little thing with minute detail. In this painting, the narrative, the story, the chaos of the moment, capturing the emotion, is more important than the detail of a button on a shirt. And this is typical from German Expressionism. Pemba is more concerned with telling the story and not the technical aspects of the painting. His use of color is quite analogous, meaning he only uses colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, with a very subdued, somber color palette. And note the striking contrast of the red blood on the white shirt. This is an important painting because it depicts the brutal violence that occurred in the townships under the apartheid regime. Now that you know George Pemba, let us know which part of his story you find most inspirational or which artwork of his is your personal favorite and why. I'm artist Lillian Gray and I'm excited for our next art history lesson.